up? This is Josh and Kelsey here at the DCU Center in Worcester, Mass, watching the Worcester Railers take on the Cincinnati Cyclones. You're watching Post to Post.
Hello and welcome to Post, the channel where we discuss all things hockey and all teams. This is kind of a video I wanted to make about a month ago, but it actually, I think, aligns better right now. We're roughly just under 2 weeks from the playoffs, maybe 2 weeks?
Week and a half.
Something like that.
A little over a week, actually.
Yeah, like it's not that far away. Some teams only have 4 or 5 games left as we're filming this, which is a Thursday night. So I wanted to kind of generate some conversation with you about all the teams in the league. And before the season started, we did predictions. Before the playoffs start, we'll be doing predictions. But this is more about what teams have surprised you. What are the surprise teams of this year, good and bad?
Right.
And but I don't just want to talk about the surprise teams. I kind of want to ask you the question for every single team, and you can just give me your general thoughts on the team so far this year. And so we've got basically, I don't think any team has more than 7 games left to play.
I don't think so.
And no team has. I think it's 4 is the least.
4
amount.
might be the fewest,
So
and if so, there's no lower than that.
Basically, the season's over. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of juggling.
Yeah.
People are going to watch this video probably when the playoffs are going on because of just how the way YouTube recommendations work. So just keep in mind that the season isn't over for us yet if you're watching this down the road. But I think the conversation would still be the same even if it was because there's only going to be a couple of changes as far as standings.
That's right. After tonight, there are 9 days left in the regular season. Because
Exactly.
it actually ends on a Saturday night this year. Usually in previous seasons, there was maybe a half dozen games on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Not this time. Saturday night, it's all over.
All right, sounds good. So as I read these, it has the standings today. So that's why I kind of mentioned that a couple of seconds ago. The standings might change a little bit, but as of today, this is how the standings look. So I want to start with the West, if that's okay.
Sure.
And I'm just going to go from top to bottom as far as standings. So the first team's Calgary. What are your thoughts on Calgary so far? Do you think they've surprised people, or have they surprised you?
They've surprised me.
They've surprised me as well.
Yeah, I thought they would be a playoff contender. I thought they would be mid-pack of the 8 teams that are going to make the playoffs out of the West. They look like they're going to be the top team with home ice advantage all the way through right now, the way things are going. They've had some slumps and some periods of inconsistency, but overall, they're doing better than I thought they would do, maybe by about 10 points probably when it's all said and done.
I think for me it's a little bit more exaggerated than that. I think it's probably around 20 points. Usually my predictions are fairly decent, but my prediction previous to the season starting for Calgary and looking at it now is pretty terrible. Actually, I think I had them outside of the playoffs, and when I made that prediction, everybody in the comments ripped me a little bit. And I found Calgary so hard to predict that I didn't know where to put them. I didn't know if they were going to be this team that everyone thought they were going to be or if they were going to struggle, and I kind of went with that struggle road. But I guess no one can really predict Riddick and how well he's done this year and kept the team alive. So, but anyways, they have surprised me. Calgary has surprised me personally. Do I think they surprised the majority of people? I probably lean more to no, because based on how the comments went in that original prediction video, most people thought that they would be exactly where they are right now. So those people were smarter than me in that specific predictions.
And I don't know what my prediction was back in October when we did the season tee-up, what we thought was going to. I actually don't have any paper in front of me as to what my predictions were. I'm only going on recall as to where I thought I was. So it could be way wrong. But if my opinion changed, it changed fairly early in the season because Calgary got out of the gate and they were a contending team right from day one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were.
I don't know where I actually had them to finish, but I expected, as I saw them play a little bit, that they would be around mid-pack. So good for them.
Yeah, definitely. Good
Definitely.
For them. San Jose.
San Jose, they're outperforming what I thought they would do.
Really?
I think so. When I look at San Jose, I see older players. And Thornton and Burns, they're starting to get a little bit older. Yeah, that's right. And they're starting to probably get a little slower. But they're a big team. They're a tough team. So I certainly expected them to make the playoffs. But to see them fighting for the top spot is good. And I don't think I expected them to be that high. But who knows? You can go back to October, and I'm predicting them to win the whole damn cup or something, for all I know.
I
don't know.
actually feel the opposite. I think they're underperforming. So to me, they have surprised a little bit.
Okay.
I think I predicted them to be first in the Pacific and maybe first in the West, just because they went after Carlson. They made some other moves and stuff, and things really kind of haven't worked out that great for San Jose, and specifically lately, they've kind of struggled a little bit. So to me, they're about maybe 10 points off, 10 to 18 points off. 10 to 13 points off where I thought they'd be. Thought they'd be close to more like 110 points by now. So disappointed because San Jose is my second favorite team. But I would say just a surprise just a little bit in a bad way. Winnipeg.
I'm not surprised they're where they are. I thought maybe they would be a little bit higher than where they are.
I agree.
Maybe.
I agree. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily surprised at where they are, but I thought they'd maybe just be a little bit higher, maybe around 105 points. I thought they were going to have basically a repeat season of last year.
That's what I thought, because their pieces are mostly all the same.
The team didn't really change that much.
No, a little bit. Well, we got Armia, of course, which was great. But for the most part, they're the same team, and yet they now have an extra year of playoff experience, almost all of them, playing as a team.
Exactly.
So I think that bodes well for their run in the playoffs this coming year.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
Nashville.
I'm trying to remember where I would have put them early on. I know in the past I've ranked Nashville pretty high, and I don't think I would have ranked them as low as they are now. I think I would have ranked them higher, and therefore I would expect right now, thinking what I thought, they're below where they should be.
I think so too. I think they're underperforming a little bit, so I would say that they are surprised, but just a little bit. I would say they're probably 8 to 9 points behind of where they probably were projected to be by most. So, St. Louis.
St. Louis, it's funny, for a long time through the year, they were below where I thought they would be, and now they're where I thought they would be.
They're higher than I thought they'd be.
It's been a long climb up. The West is not as high point scoring as the East.
Yes.
So you've got a lot of races in the West that are in the 90s and high 80s if you count the wild card teams. Whereas in the East, if you don't have 90, you're not even touching the wild card.
Yeah.
So it's a little different to make an apples and apples comparison in this case, because they're not. But they're locked into third.
They're close. They're
pretty well.
I can't see them not making the playoffs. I think it's not possible, but it's pretty much set in stone that they're going to make the playoffs, I think, at this point.
Yeah, they haven't clinched, but it looks like they're going to finish, third place in their division, which means they won't have home ice in the first round. But I think it's been a great climb back for them, because St. Louis really struggled in the middle of the year.
They did, and there's been quite a bit of turnover in St. Louis, and I think I actually predicted them to be quite lower than they are now, maybe outside of the playoffs. But the fact that they are in the playoffs has surprised me, but not necessarily where they are has surprised me the most, but how they did it.
Yeah.
Some really crappy hockey for a couple of months, and then some absolutely incredible hockey for a couple of months. So you just can't predict a rookie goaltender coming in and standing on his head like Bennington has. You just can't predict that. So it's good for St. Louis. I'm very happy for them, but I would still say they are a bit of a surprise. But Vegas.
Vegas, I was really wowed by them in the first year. They surprised everybody, maybe except themselves. And I thought there was so much on the ice, and then adding Pacioretty as an additional offensive piece without giving up a lot. I thought they would be as good this year as they were last year, and we're seeing a little more humanity from them, a little more mortality, but they're still doing exceptionally well. They were a slow off-the-mat team this year too, really.
Yeah, they've had some weird streaks a little bit, and they're on a weird streak right now.
Yeah.
And
so they're punching under what I thought they'd be at right now based on their first year's performance, which was out of this world, but I thought repeatable. And
repeatable for sure, yeah. I think for me they're about exactly where I would have predicted, not at the top of the division in the Pacific, but probably just a couple teams under, fighting for second or third or something like that.
Yeah.
So.
And they've had a couple of bad games. Subban's been in net for the two that I've seen. And
he does not play well on the road
no.
as we're filming this.
Yeah.
I have to keep saying that. But.
Yeah. So anyway, I hope that if they go into the playoffs with a nice, well-rested, healthy Fleury, and I wouldn't bet against them.
No, you
wouldn't
can't.
bet
You can't
against
bet against Vegas. It's
Yeah.
based on last year. You can't do it. So.
Yeah. And if you bet against them, Vegas still wins because guess where all the betting happens?
Yeah, exactly. Dallas. What's your thoughts on Dallas?
I'm starting to become a little more surprised. I had high hopes for them at the beginning of the year with the addition of Radulov and second year now with Radulov settling in. I thought that they would be, over the course of the year, a fairly good contending team, but they were not in a good space 2 or 3 months ago.
They're a very inconsistent team. Very, very inconsistent in injuries. I mean,
Yeah.
Bishop's been injured like 5 times this year. It's getting out of hand a little bit as far as injuries, and not just Bishop. I mean, I'm talking about the entire team and the bad luck with Zuccarello.
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen a team with more bad luck in a year, I think. But
Yeah.
Tampa Bay had some pretty bad luck, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. But Dallas is surprised me in that they're not higher than they were. But again, last year they really surprised me because I thought that they were going to be at the top of the Central, and they were not. So
Yeah.
I think my predictions of Dallas have been wrong 2 years in a row, but that's okay. Colorado. Colorado's a weird one because 2 years ago they're eating at the bottom, and then last year they snuck into the playoffs and actually put up quite a fight against Nashville, and
They
really
did.
probably could have won that series. There was a couple games where it was so close, so it was hard to predict Colorado this year. So I would say they're probably about exactly where I thought they might be.
I think so too.
No real surprise from Colorado, I would say. But
No big surprise. They have a lot of the pieces that a winning team needs to have. They don't have them all, but they have a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And when all the things come together on the right night, they can beat anybody in the league. And McKinnon he's lights out.
Mm-hmm.
That game we watched last week with Colorado and Chicago was a real treat. And it's going to be a great team to watch if
definitely,
they
it's going to
keep
be awesome.
going.
Yeah.
Arizona, I didn't have a lot of hope near the beginning of the year. They're very close. They're just knocking on the door of the playoffs, and we don't know what's going to happen in the next 9 days, but they're only just a smidgen out, but they're chasing Minnesota, Dallas. It's going to be hard for them to get in with the other teams that they have to fight against for that last spot. But I did pick them a few weeks ago as the team that might sneak in that wasn't already into the playoffs, and I still hope they do.
And I think that's probably a fair prediction prior to the season starting, because last season they started to come on right after Christmas and played very, 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 very good hockey up until the end of the season. They didn't make it, but they were still playing really good hockey. And I think that's the kind of team that they are. They're not. No one predicted Arizona to be atop of the Pacific this year, or even second or third. They were one of those bubble teams that, if things go right, they might make one of the wild card spots, and that's exactly where they are. So for me, Arizona's not a surprise.
Yeah.
Minnesota,
their headline player, their captain, is 36 years old. They haven't really added some important pieces that I think they'd need to have to do better than they've done in the last few years. They haven't gone appreciably better, so I didn't expect they would do appreciably better, and I don't think they have. They're right there, hovering around the cut line for getting into the playoffs, probably where they should be. If anything, maybe they're a little higher than I would have put them.
Oh, I think they're a little underperforming for me, but I find Minnesota, there's a couple teams I find really hard to predict. Minnesota's one of them. I think that they made some questionable roster movements over the past 12 months, and also some really good ones as well. But I feel like they're underperforming a little bit. Dubnyk is so streaky and inconsistent at times. It is definitely frustrating. So I would say that they're underperforming a little bit, but they're not that far off of where I thought. But Chicago,
I'm trying to remember what I predicted at the beginning of the year. It's ever since Nashville beat them a couple of playoffs ago, something happened. The air came out of something, and they've not been the same team since.
They have not, but they've been playing pretty good hockey
lately.
As far as probably the last 3 months have gone. And, they had the big coaching change, and it's some questionable new coach came in who was quite a bit younger and by quite a bit I mean quite a bit younger.
And they fired the coach when they still had a winning record early on. They were only 10 or 15 games in.
And the roster really hasn't changed that much
No.
in Chicago. I mean, the core is generally still there.
Yeah.
So I think they still have a lot of potential. As far as where they are and if they're a surprise, for me, not really. I think this is probably where I would have predicted them, kind of maybe on that bubble fighting for a wild card spot, but too far away. They're actually, I would say, just above where I thought that they would be. Edmonton.
Edmonton, they're underperforming.
I think so too, yeah. Underperforming. They are a surprise for me.
With all the talent they have, shaky in goal, and I don't think they had the goaltending situation really locked in nicely at the beginning of the season anyway. And Koskinen actually had a nice run there for a while.
He did, actually.
Early on.
Yeah, he did.
But the other talent they've got in that team, and I said this in a video a couple of programs ago, if you want to call it programs, that if you take the actual ingredients of what's on the bench in that team and you mix them all together, you should have a better team than you've got. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably most people's assessment. I think they're underperforming. I really thought they would be knocking on the playoff door this year.
When you could see what they could do a couple of years ago whenever they got into the playoffs and actually started to play some really, really good hockey. Yeah. And then you watch them play hockey now, and it's so inconsistent and it's so defensively frustrating to watch. Underperforming for sure. They're a surprise in a bad way for me.
And they've got some bad contracts now, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon. They've got Lucic sitting there with time to go and lots of money, and it's just not there. It must be very frustrating for Connor McDavid to not have the team around him that he probably thinks he deserves, and he's probably right.
Okay, what about Vancouver?
Vancouver, I was hoping they would be better.
I was hoping that they would be better, but honestly, they're not a surprise. They're exactly where I thought they would be. They have such a young team, which isn't a bad thing. They're part of, they're doing the rebuild, and they're doing it the right way. So that's something actually to be excited about. If you're a Vancouver fan, in 3 to 7 years, we're probably going to see Vancouver at the top of the Pacific.
I hope so.
Fighting in the playoffs. So it's frustrating when the team that you cheer for is down at the bottom, but when you can see that light and see that hope, it definitely does feel pretty good. So I think even Vancouver fans are generally okay with where Vancouver is now, not really surprised with where they are, and that's not a bad thing.
The next few games with Vancouver will be interesting because now that Hughes is free, they're going to bring him up, and they're going to play him. Pettersson has been a really fantastic story for Vancouver this year, just as Besser was last year. Mm-hmm. This young team, like you say, in a few more years, when they all start to gel and find their stride and gain the rest of the weight that they're going to gain and become men, it's going to be a heck of a team.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Anaheim,
very disappointed.
Huge surprise for me. Probably one of the biggest surprises in the whole league this year.
Yeah.
Just a terrible run of hockey. I think they went 1-21 or something.
Unbelievable.
3-22 or whatever it was. It was just a ridiculous stretch.
Yeah.
One of the worst streaks in hockey that I've seen this year, or actually in the past couple of years. So to me, Anaheim is one of the biggest surprises. I can't believe they are where they are. But with that said, they're actually playing some pretty good hockey recently. So they're out of whatever that slump they were in. And I mean, they're not going to make the playoffs, or not even really close, but I guess that's something you can take away from the season and work towards next year. And there's going to be a lot of changes on Anaheim, I think, in the offseason. So,
I think so.
Definitely surprised.
Yeah.
Last from the West, we have Los Angeles.
Yeah, I guess I'm not overly surprised because I didn't really see – there's a little bit of Chicago similarity there when it comes to the core. Like, there's the core of the team, and you got Kopitar and Quick and
Brown and Doughty.
Yeah. So the core is still there. Not the core, maybe, but some of those foundation pieces from their Stanley Cup days are still there, but it's just not. It's not there chemically.
To me, they're a surprise, and I know there's injuries with Los Angeles that you can't control, and that sucks. And Quick dealt with some of those, and but I am generally surprised because when you make big moves and you bring in Kovalchuk, which was a huge dramatic event in the world of hockey when it happened, and everyone knows how skilled Kovalchuk is. He's one of the greatest players of probably all time, and he kind of underperformed, in my opinion, all year. And to me, yeah, I think Los Angeles is a big surprise in a negative way, and that sucks because as much as I don't like LA from a fan perspective, you never want to see a team do that badly when their expectations were so much higher than that. Honestly, I probably would have pegged LA to be knocking on the door for a wild card spot, and they're not even close.
No, they're not even close. And the whole game of hockey does better when LA is doing well. LA, if you go back to the original expansion years, LA was one of the places where the league put a seed to try to grow the game in a non-traditional market, and it took root slowly, but it took root. Gretzky's arrival there after the trade from Edmonton was a massive push for the West Coast generally and for the southwestern U.S. to have L.A. then becoming good and winning the big trophy and the celebrities that they draw into the arena and the fun that they can put on a local night. It's really, really important for the game of hockey that LA be successful.
Definitely, and I think when you look at last year when they made the playoffs and had to face Vegas, but you look at what Jonathan Quick did. Jonathan Quick almost single-handedly won a bunch of those games.
His goals against average was like 1 point something.
It was ridiculous.
And he still lost four straight.
It was probably one of the most interesting series from last year and the past couple of years. But the fact that Jonathan Quick isn't fighting for a playoff spot or isn't already in a playoff spot kind of sucks, because when you see someone that can do that in the playoffs, regardless of what team they're on, you want to see them in the playoffs. That's good hockey from a hockey fan perspective.
It is.
Disappointing surprise from LA this year.
Yeah.
If we transition to the East, Tampa Bay, are you surprised?